and welcome to my Doll's House diary. Now in today's episode I'm going to be in the living room and making some scatter cushions for the new sofa. So let's get started. So I want to start today by showing you the sofa and armchair that I made for the living room. Now I did actually make these as projects for my next book, book 6, and this really is an updated version of the blue two-seater sofa that I did as a tutorial here on the channel. And I think even during that tutorial I said that I would remake it and see if there were any ways to improve, and I think I have actually improved the design. I think it's a lot neater and it was also a lot easier to build than the tutorial here on the channel. And one of the reasons why is because I came up with a new way of creating that lovely sort of cording around the arms and the cushions. And all of that obviously will be included as steps in the book. But what I actually did was double over the fabric. So if you imagine a piece of fabric wraps all the way around the arm. So I doubled it over, so folded it into the middle, and then in each of those folds, at the front and back, I put a piece of cord and then glued that in quite tightly and really sort of worked it in with my fingers. And that creates that really nice corded effect without using a separate piece of cord or without creating a piece using your set sort of fabric and a piece of cord and then putting it in separately. So it does cut down on time, but also, like I say, I think it looks a lot neater. Now the chair actually is made in exactly the same way, it's just half the size. And I know that people have actually made armchairs by following that sofa tutorial. But I wanted to include it in the book and also include the different sizes, obviously, that you need of fabric, because I give all of that, you know, the lengths and everything that you're going to need. And I did want to use this in my Doll's House living room, so the sofa and the chair. Now I'll definitely be using the sofa, but I just wanted to show you how they both look in the room. Okay, so I'm going to have the sofa sitting over there on that wall. So opposite the log burner there. And then I was going to have the chair on the other side of the chimney rest there. And then my plan was to have a unit along the back wall, either just a sideboard, so sort of half height, or a larger sort of display unit. But I actually think the chair takes up too much room. So I think because the room, it's deep, but it's fairly narrow. And I just think that the armchair looks a little bit bulky over there. It also means that I'd have to sit the unit more to the sort of left-hand side, whereas I wanted it centralised along that back wall. And I can't really come too much further forward with the chair, because again, it's not really going to look right, overlapping the fireplace. And also I'm planning on making an apothecary style coffee table to go in front of the sofa, and the chair would then also be in the way of that, or there wouldn't be room to get around. So I probably won't use the armchair in the room. Well, I definitely won't use the armchair in the room now. Now I did have to make it for the book anyway, and it was fun to make, so I don't mind that, and I can always use it perhaps in a little room box setting or something like that, so that won't go to waste. But what I will do is make another chair, but something a little bit slimmer and that doesn't protrude so much into the room, so something like a sort of Berger style chair. But what I want to get on with now is actually making some cushions for the sofa, so let's head back into the craft room. So the fabrics that I've chosen for the cushions are a lovely mixture of floral and check. I've also got there the cord fabric that I've actually used for the sofa. I've got here some 1-ply crewel wool, and I'm going to have a go at knitting a cushion as well. Probably won't get around to that in today's episode, but I'll let you know how I get on with that. I'm not very good at miniature knitting. And then I've also got here some crochet cotton, and I'll crochet a couple of cushions as well. And my idea for the living room, and I know I've told you this before, but I'll just sort of refresh your memory, is a sort of log cabin with quite a feminine feel. Lots of different fabrics and textures, and I'm just flashing up here a few of my inspiration photographs, and I think a couple of these are from the Laura Ashley range, which I really love. So that's what I'll be basing it upon. So I'm going to make enough cushions today to fill the sofa, and I want to make a few more as well for when I do eventually get around to making another chair for the room. Okay, so how I like to do my cushions, rather than just stitching 2 squares of fabric together, is to create them using 3 pieces. So I'll have a front, and then for the back I have 2 parts. I stitch the back parts together just along each edge, leaving a gap in the middle for filling, and then I'll stitch the front to that piece. And that just prevents there from being a sort of ridge along the bottom edge where you leave an opening for your filling, and instead you have that hidden at the back. Now normally I glue the back seam together after I've stuffed the cushion, but this time I have used a row of stitching. It's not the neatest, but as that's hidden at the back, I think that's good enough. And what I've actually used to fill the cushion are these tiny little glass beads. I'm just going to make sure the bag's sealed because these really do go everywhere. And these were very kindly sent to me by Kath Cryer, one of my patrons. And I don't know if that's picking it up on camera, just how small they are. And they're probably, I don't know, 0.5 millimetre in diameter, if that. But they make the perfect filling for this size cushion, or cushions at this scale. So I've filled this one, and as you can see, it's got that lovely sort of natural plump look to it. Now I always find if you just use wadding or foam stuffing, they always look a little bit too light. But with using these beads, you can really shape them around your sofa and make some nice sort of comfy shapes with them. So if I just put that one on the edge there like that, see how that just sort of molds around the arm of the sofa there, and you can do your little dip in them and make them look as though they've been used, and I really love that. So I did used to use seeds for this, but I find even with smaller seeds they still tend to have a bit of a sharp edge, and sometimes that can sort of poke through the front of the fabric. So these really are perfect. Now these are actually sold as, I think, teddy bear filling, and they're sold in very large bags of sort of 5 kilograms. So what I've done is I've ordered a large bag in, and I'm going to split them down into smaller bags and then sell those in my Etsy shop. And I think if you only use it for smaller projects like this, you're not going to need a 5 kilogram bag, so the smaller bags may be more suitable. Okay, so what I've actually done is create myself a couple of templates for the most frequent sized cushions that I make. So how to actually create your templates is to decide upon the size of the cushion that you want, and then add on 3 millimeters or 1/8 of an inch. And that's just because once you've actually stitched around and then stuffed the cushion, it does actually reduce in size, because obviously whereas that would be flat when you cut it out of fabric, once you've filled it, it goes that way, so it becomes a little bit smaller. So always add on that 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch, and then cut yourself a square to that size. You then want to cut a larger square, which is the size of the piece of fabric you want, because then you're adding on a hem, and I add on about 5 millimeters, but you can add more than that if you wish. And you want to add that border all the way around your cushion size. What I then do is cut the 2 pieces for the back. So if I just lay those on there like that, so they'll be the same, oh, it doesn't look very neat that way. So they'll be the same width as your fabric piece. And then again, you want to add your hem on to the top and bottom. And I'll sort of show you how I do it, and it'll be a little bit clearer than I've explained it there. So if I just show you one here that I've cut. So I've cut my large square of fabric. I've then used the size that I want the cushion to draw the hemline onto the back of the large piece of fabric, and I've then cut my 2 back pieces as well. And I'm going to begin with these back pieces and just stitch along the top edge, leaving a gap for the stuffing. So to stitch the cushions, I'm using my Gutermann's polyester thread. So I've got double arm's length here on one of my smaller sewing needles. And I don't pin these pieces, I just sort of hold them together face to face, right side to right side. And then I just do a hem probably about 3 millimeters, 1/8 of an inch from that top edge. And on here I probably just do about 5 stitches from each edge into the centre. And I'm using a back stitch here. Keep your stitches quite small. So that's just a line of 5 stitches that side. Just go behind a stitch and then through the loop to cast off. Snip that off, snip off the end. And then you want to come in from the other side. Again, just with your 5 stitches. Like so. So open that out and then just pop it down on your work surface and fold over the hem to one way, like that, and then you want to put it face to face with your front piece. Oops. Like that, so line up your edges, and then I just like to use a couple of pins, just one at each side, to hold those together. Like that, and then I start stitching around my pencil line. Again, just using back stitch and the smallest stitches I can manage. Now I have stitched cushions in the past using my sewing machine, but I do quite enjoy hand stitching if I have the time. And I sometimes think by the time I've actually got the sewing machine out of the cupboard, set it all up, threaded it, changed all the tension, and sometimes my sewing machine has a habit of being naughty as well, playing up. It's just as easy to actually hand stitch something small like this. But it's obviously down to what you prefer, and I suppose the time that you have available as well. Okay, so once you've been all the way around, I just like to trim off a little bit of the hem. So don't go too close to your stitches, but just trim off around the outside edge. This just means we've got less bulk then inside the cushion. And then I just take off the very corner. At each corner like that. Again, not going too close to your stitch line. You can then turn it the right way around. You then want to sort of get in there with something fairly thin, not a pair of scissors obviously, as you may poke through, but something thin to work your way right into the corners like that and really poke them through, so that you've got that nice sort of square shape. Like that, and we're now ready to fill. And to do that, I've actually treated myself to these lovely little plastic funnels. They came, I think, in a pack of 4 or 5, and they've just got a 4mm opening there, or 3/16 of an inch, so perfect for sort of miniature work. And I'm going to put a link to those below, a link through to my Amazon affiliates account. So just pop the funnel in there, and then with your little bag of beads, just open a very small gap at one end. You don't want to open the entire bag, or you're going to end up losing a lot of them. They really do go everywhere just because they're so small and fine. And what I'm also going to do is just pop a piece of paper down underneath where I'm filling. That will then catch your overspill and you'll be able to tip it back into your bag so you don't waste anything. Okay, so just begin tipping. I'm trying not to block the camera. Let me twist around a bit. Sort of fill the funnel up about halfway. And then sort of twist it into the cushion like that, or shake it into the cushion. So these slightly larger cushions will need a bit more. So just keep going until you've got a nice sort of padded cushion. You don't want to overfill it either. Hope my fingers aren't in the way there. I'm sure you know what I'm doing there. So that's a couple of funnels worth. I probably need a couple more. Okay, like that. So I'm just going to pop the cushion to one side. And then just try and salvage as many as you can. So sort of fold up your paper a bit at each side. There isn't a rule to this. Just sort of do it as best as you can, because the moment you pick it up they'll just go everywhere. So fold like that and then try to work one end into a point so that you can tip them all back in. So sort of enveloping them up and then creating a point. And you'll still lose some. Each time you do it you'll probably lose a few. Those back in there like that. And then do up your bag before you do anything else. Because if you're like me you'll end up knocking it over. Okay, so back to our cushion. And I just sort of want to show you how much I've got in there. So if I just squeeze the back together like that, it's not overly full. So you still want to be able to create some nice shapes with it. But a way of telling is if you sort of flatten it out and they all start pouring out, then you've probably got too many in there. So just tip them all back in. And then what I'm going to do is just fold in those seams. Again, I'm probably just getting my hands in your way there. But fold them in the best you can. Tip the, or let the beads fall to the back of the cushion for a moment, and then you can stitch along that line. And how you want to do it is so that you're starting off inside, so that the end of your cotton will be inside. So poke through like that, leave a bit in there like that, and then just do your overstitch. Again, just getting them as small as you can and as close to the opening as you can. Like that. Start off with a, not pulling too hard at the start, or with the first couple of stitches. And then you can go a little bit tighter as you go along, once you've sort of caught the cotton in. Keep sort of pushing the hem in as you go along, so you haven't got any open edges showing. And just be careful of your little beads. It doesn't actually help if you just rest it on your work surface as you're doing it. So when you reach the end, just go back in along the seam like that and come out at the far end. Might need a thimble for this part. Like that, and then I just go through like one of the stitches, one or two stitches, just to cast off. And then through your loop if you can. like that. And then snip off your cotton like that. So that's my larger cushion, and there's the smaller one there. So I've got about a 5mm difference between the two. And for that larger one, I used the 50mm square for the fabric, or 2 inches, and 40mm, or an inch, or 1 19/32 of an inch for the actual hem. So again, as you can see, that's just come out slightly smaller than the size I chose there. So always do remember to add on your 3mm to get the sized cushion that you want. You don't want to go too big. A cushion of 40 by 40 comes out by about just under 1.5 inches, so just under 1.5 feet in real life. And that one's about 1 foot and a bit. Can't remember now, what was it? 1 1/16 of an inch, about 32mm. And you can go smaller than that as well if you like, go down to about 1 inch or so, 25mm. So what I'm actually doing with my fabric is doing one of each, so a large and a small in each fabric design. Now, just because with stitching by hand they do take the time, I'm actually going to do those this evening, and I'll come back in the morning and we'll display those on the sofa. So I'll see you then. So I managed to get all of the cushions stitched together last night. So I've just started filling them, and I'm just stitching up the back now. I've got a few on the sofa and chair, as you can see, and I think already they're looking really good. So I'm looking forward to putting some of these checked designs on. And then what I'm actually going to do with a few of them is add some, I was going to say braid, but I suppose sort of roping around the outside edge. And I'm going to use some embroidery thread for the floral ones. I'm actually going to use that thicker wool for the checked ones and see how that looks. And that's just another way of sort of really adding a bit of detail to the cushion, really sort of finishing it off. Okay, so all of the cushions are now stuffed and I think they look really good, and I like that configuration as well of the patterns on there. So what I want to do now is actually apply some piping around the outside edge. I think earlier I said braid or roping, but I think the sort of correct term is actually piping. And for that I've got some embroidery floss, and this is the 6-stranded floss, and I'm going to leave it as the 6 strands, so I'm not going to separate those. And then I've got here some of the 1-ply crewel wool as well, so I'm going to have a go with that as well. And I'm just going to use my Gorilla Wood glue for this, and the trick is to get the glue right around the seam, so get it right along your stitches. And I'm going to go all the way around, and then I can just put the piping on in one piece. Back to the beginning there. So begin in the middle of an edge rather than at a corner or something. And I'm just actually going to trim off the very end there of the embroidery floss. So lay that onto the glue like that. And then just work your way around, just very gently pressing it down, and all the time really keeping it on the stitches or along the stitches. Obviously trying to keep it straight as well. And you can buy 1 millimeter thick braid for this. And I would have probably used that, but I actually didn't have the right colour. Like I said, I think it just really finishes them off. Work round like that, just gently pressing the floss against the glue. That's Matt out there drilling, if you can hear that on camera. Not sure what he's doing down there today. So trim off where you start and then try and sort of join them in if you can. Might need to just put a little bit more glue on. And work your way around, make sure it's sticking down everywhere. And this glue does dry clear, but you can get rid of any sort of excess if you need to. Just again, very gently. I think that looks really nice. So it just makes them stand out a little bit more, I think. And you can do some of them or all of them if you wish. Let's pop that one back there. So I'm going to try now with some of the crewel wool. It just feels as though the crewel wool is better suited to one of the checked cushions. And by using different trimmings as well, you're adding all of those different textures in as well, which is what I want in this room. I'm going to be crocheting a throw to go on the back of the sofa. So I'll get started on that, but that will take a while. I'm working on a couple at the moment for my Etsy shop. And I'm really starting to try and add some more handmade bits into my shop. But I will keep sort of stocking the wood and the ironmongery and all things like that. So again, snip off where you started. That looks quite good actually with the wool. I might try a checked one with the embroidery floss as well, but see how easy that is, just to sort of finish them off like that. And I think it just makes them look really nice. So I am going to do all of them, I think. So that's all of the cushions complete now. And I really love how they look. Now, I did say earlier that I would be crocheting a cushion and also having a go at knitting one. So once I've done that, I may remove some of the existing ones. And obviously the armchair I've completed for another project, but I do need to take final photographs of these for book 6. So these cushions will look really nice for that as well. But what I want to do now is go and try the sofa back into place in the doll's house. And there it is in place. I think that looks really cosy. I like the floral cushions as well with the wallpaper. And again, it's not an exact match, but it just goes together really well. So before I go today, I just want to give a quick recap really of how the house is looking so far, just because it's been a while since I've done one of these episodes. So up there in the guest bedroom, almost done apart from accessories. I've still got to hang those lovely paintings that Matt did for me, and then I want to make some luggage and a toiletry bag, dress this unit, the top of the fireplace, mantelpiece, sorry. Not quite sure what to do in the fireplace yet. So just lots of bits to do in there really. And I don't know if you remember, but I was working on a rug for this room and I chose a smaller canvas than I'd used before because I always think that the 18 count interlock canvas that I've used in the past looks a little bit thick. But the rug that I was working on, it was just taking too long, and because the stitches were too small and I think I was using too thick a thread for the holes, it's just getting into a complete mess. So I've sort of given up on that for now, and I'll probably go back to the 18 count interlock canvas that I always used to use and actually enjoyed using. So though the holes are slightly bigger and it produces a thicker rug, I was enjoying the process more, and I think that's very important. But I'll come back to that in another episode, and I promise you I will do a rug tutorial, because I want to make rugs for all of the rooms, so that's going to be quite a big job. So if I just go up then into the attic room, let me just put the roof all the way up. So in here is a real sort of mishmash, and it probably won't all stay in there, but it's just things that I want to keep, but I'm not sure yet where I'm going to put them, either in the house or in other projects. So I'm just keeping it really as a storage area. But I do want to make some really nice luggage and things to go in there and do a nicer display. And then into the top landing, again, haven't really done anything in here, but I do want some luggage standing in the hallway, bit of an overspill from the attic. I'm not sure what else I'll do in there, probably have a rug or something in there, a runner. The craft room, again, I've got quite a few bits to do in there. Lots and lots of accessories to make. I'm still working on a little crocheted blanket for the back of the chair there, and I'll update you on that in another episode. So just lots of bits and pieces to make to go in there. I've got a couple of packets of silica gel in these top rooms, just because I was noticing a little bit of damp coming in from the wall behind. And if I just take you back down to this central landing area, if you look out of the back window there, you can see that shiny effect. I haven't put the acetate in that window yet, but that's actually bubble wrap, which I've put behind the doll's house, just to see if I could sort of insulate it a bit from the damp that comes in from that wall. And it's just because we're in a very old house, and obviously there's no insulation in the walls or anything like that. So we do tend to get a bit of damp and a bit of mould in some rooms. And I'd noticed a little bit in the doll's house, which is absolutely heartbreaking, but obviously I need to come up with a way of stopping it from happening. So I've just got some silica gel packets in for now, and I do dot those about in all of the rooms. I just sort of removed them really for the filming. But one idea I have had, if I sort of step backwards, the unit that the doll's house sits on could probably come forward by about another 6 inches, just to move it further away from the wall. And the only thing then is when I have the doors open, it interferes with the door into the room. But you know, I can just tell Matt just to be careful when I've got the doors open. So that's not really a problem, but I think that will solve some of the issue, just to bring it forwards a bit. But back then up to the main bedroom. Again, all of the furniture in here is done, so it's just accessories. Some nice suitcases and things. Just straighten that runner there. I've pinched that round cushion from the bed, but I think that looks quite nice on there. So I'll make another one of those round cushions to go back behind Ted there. And probably a little runner or something to come over the side of the chair. Down to the study, and I'm having second thoughts about the dark blue, so I may change the colours in there, and I may even paper the entire room. And another thing I noticed, I don't know why I did this, but I just used a very plain skirting board. I copied what I'd got in the kitchen, and I wanted a plain one in the kitchen because I thought it matched the room a bit better. But in all of the other rooms, if I just move that forwards, I've got the sort of nicer decorative skirting board or baseboard. So I want to carry that down then into the study. So I've got a few changes to make in there, but I don't want to go sort of too drastic that I have to take the fireplace or anything like that out. So it will just be sort of surface changes in there, and obviously I'll update you on those as well. Central landing, I've got that lovely console table. So obviously just a lot of dressing and things to do in there. We know about the living room. Into the dining room, and again the rest of the furniture to make. I want a lovely sort of oval table in there. Some nice fabric chairs. Maybe a little plant stand in this little area here. the fireplace in there, or the chimney breast, is further over this way because obviously we've got the back door in there. I need to make curtains as well for all of the rooms. There's so much to do and so little time. You know, I don't have as much time as I'd like to spend on this house, just because really I'm still working on book 6 at the moment, so that's taking up quite a bit of time. But as soon as that's published, and I'm not going to say a date just because I feel extremely anxious when I give a date and then as that date gets nearer and I'm not ready, so I'm not going to say a date. Let me just go and get the door. Yeah, so I'm not actually going to give a firm date for that. But I am just working on it, you know, every week really. So as soon as it's ready, it will be ready and I'll let you know in good time. But onto the kitchen, and again a few bits of display to do in there. This little unit on the left there. I want to get that vegetable basket in there to go at the side of the sink. And just really some more accessories in there. I wanted to do a couple of runners, floor runners, to go at either side of the island as well. Downstairs landing is the same, or the entrance hall is the same. I'll make another console table to go on this side of the door, the same as the one above with the sort of crisscross leg design. Lots of pictures and things we need in there, brighten it up a bit. So yes, lots of work to do still, and I really want to get back to this and start sort of doing something, you know, a bit more regularly, even if it's just shorter videos and just one little job. And I think I said to you before, but I'm not sure how I'm going to work on it, whether I might just choose a room and then complete that room, you know, all the way through, or whether I'll sort of dash from room to room. And I know a lot of you said that you also sort of go from room to room depending on the mood you're in. You know, some days you might feel like tackling a larger job, and other days you might just want to make some smaller accessories and things like that. So that's really what I'll be doing with this, I think. Just, you know, depending on how much time I've got, but just trying to get something done at least once a week. That's the plan anyway. Oh, I don't think I talked about that area, did I? So back landing again is just accessories and dressing, and then this front area is the bathroom, and that's going to be sort of probably one of the last jobs, tiling this area and then putting in a really nice bathroom suite. Okay, so that's it for today's episode, and I really hope you've enjoyed this one. Now, as I said there, I am going to try and spend a little bit more time on the doll's house, even if it's just one small job a week, and obviously I'll film everything that I do and try to bring you more of these episodes, because I know that a lot of you like the My Doll's House Diary series. Now, if you're already a subscriber to the channel, thank you so much. But if you come along to watch the videos and you're not yet a subscriber, can I please ask you to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well, so that you don't miss any of my uploads, and that would really be appreciated. A huge thank you to each and every one of my patrons who make all of my videos possible, and if you'd like to check out my Patreon page, I'll pop a link in the description box below, and over there you'll find hundreds of more videos, including tutorials, my 1940s Doll's House series and monthly vlogs. But I'm going to let you go now and get on with your day, and I'll see you again soon. Take care, bye. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. See you soon.